Welcome back to the Atlantic Adventures Collection virtual familiarisation visit for Plymouth and Liverpool. Next we're going to showcase our military heritage themed itinerary for Plymouth behind the walls. With us today we have Claire from the Mountbatten Tower, Charlie and the team from the box, and Chrissy from About the West Guides talking about the Royal Citadel. We hope you enjoy the presentations.
Hello and welcome to the Mountbatten Tower, part of the Atlantic Adventures collection. This mid-17th century state-of-the-art gun tower sits on the Mountbatten Peninsula. It is made of locally quarried limestone and granite and is of 3-storey circular structure. The tours that we offer are self-guided. So you and your tour group will have just a maximum of 25 people to explore and enjoy the Mountbatten Tower at your leisure. As it is self-guided, the information is provided to you at the start of the tour, and it is your leisure to enjoy and experience the views that the Mountbatten Tower awards. The magic really does happen at the top of the tower. There are 360-degree views of Plymouth in all directions, across the breakwater, the Catwater, Plymouth Sound, across the Drake's Island, and looking back towards the Hoe. So the Mountbatten Tower is open to the public throughout the year on set open days. Your tour will be booked with a private tour. It will not be open to any other members of the public during your time here at the tower. The tower is also available for the local community to get married. It is a small capacity of just 25 people maximum to enjoy their wedding here. They can then go on to have their wedding reception at the local Mountbatten Water Sports and Activity Centre or at various reception areas across the city. The Mountbatten Tower was built during the Commonwealth period of the First Anglo-Dutch War. Its primary aim was to protect the Catwater. Its protection of the Catwater was superseded by the building of the Royal Citadel up on Plymouth Hoe during the 1660s. More recently, the Mountbatten Tower was used as an observation post and was part of RAF Mountbatten. You can book your Mountbatten Tower self-guided tour by visiting the Mountbatten Water Sports and Activity Centre website. As custodians of the tower, the Mountbatten Water Sports and Activity Centre team will ensure that your booking is made to dates and arrangements that suit you and your tour. You can either email inquiries@mount-batten-centre.com or call the team on 01752 404 567. There is a dedicated page on the website where you can also make bookings and find out more information about the Mountbatten Tower that hasn't been covered in this short video. I hope you've enjoyed the short tour of the Mountbatten Tower and finding out a little bit more information about it. As we've said, the magic really does happen when you visit and see the sights from the top of the tower yourselves. If you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box to the side and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
Hello and welcome to the box. I hope you enjoy hearing about our military history here.
Behind me is the figurehead of HMS Defiance. Now, Defiance was built in 1831, but never saw active service, but played an important part in the development of naval strategy and warfare, being the training ship for torpedo and mining operations. The figureheads range in size from about 2 metres to 4.5 metres. The size of the figureheads was a challenge when it came to conserving them, and also when it came to suspending them from the ceiling in this unique aerial display. Viewed from the front of the building, the figureheads float in space as if they were a flotilla, and as you come into the building, you're standing below them and you get a completely unique perspective. I liken it to visiting the docks when the ships were actually moored alongside the quayside and looking up at the figureheads because that is the perspective we are trying to achieve. The size of the figureheads is quite important really and denotes the size of the ship. And we have HMS Defiance behind us, and behind HMS Defiance we have HMS Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle was a 100-gun ship, and they vary in size down to around about 2 metres for a small sloop. The weight of the figureheads was something, a challenge we had to consider when conserving them as well, as some of them weigh up to 3.5 tonnes. But they are amazingly conserved, and one of the innovations in this display was the use of sonic tomography and 3D scanning to enable the structural engineers to establish which were the parts we had to conserve, and the way the mounts integrate discreetly with the original object. Figureheads are really important part of not only maritime history, but a part of our cultural history in terms of decorative art. In this country, in Northern Europe generally, we don't have a great deal of carved wooden sculpture, certainly not displayed outside. And the fate of the figureheads over the years has been that they have been placed on buildings and eventually they've rotted away. And that's also been the fate of these of many naval figureheads which were previously displayed at Devonport. The records suggest that there were 70 figureheads at Devonport over the years. We have 14. 30 of those 70 figureheads went to the National Maritime Museum. Around about 39 figureheads were lost during the Second World War as part of the bombing, and another 30 were also lost to fire in around 1840. So because of their nature, they are extremely vulnerable. The rest of the figureheads, sadly, were lost to decay. So we're very lucky here at the box to have such a wonderful collection, so well preserved and uniquely displayed in our aerial display.
Hello and welcome to The Box. My name is Louisa Blight and I am the Collections Manager here. There are over 2 million collections at home here at The Box, but some of those that are on display here in our Port of Plymouth Gallery relate to Plymouth's inherent relationship with the sea. And of course, when we're talking about the sea, we can't not talk about the relationship with Devonport Dockyard and the Royal Navy. So this space here is dedicated to helping us understand that long and very involved history. Over 300 vessels were made by Plymouthians here in the city over 300 years. In the late 18th century, the Devonport Dockyard was literally called the greatest dockyard in the universe, and it still is the largest dockyard in Europe today. In 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte was held prisoner in Plymouth Sound on HMS Bellerophon. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered to see him from Plymouth Hoe, and people wrote about their experiences and what they could see. It was such an amazing thing to see. Why don't you come and see it for yourself? One of the most important jobs for Devonport Dockyard was the supply of the Royal Navy, and to that end, in the early 19th century, Royal William Yard was built up to supply a range of buildings for the storage and supply of military materials, everything from gunpowder to food and drink. Navy rum, of course. These wonderful buildings, designed by John Rennie, are Grade 1 listed and are a fantastic visitor destination in their own right.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed looking at the box. Please put your questions in the chat box and I will answer them during the Q&A.
Hello, my name's Chrissy Lemarchant. I'm a Blue Badge guide for the southwest of England about the West Tours, and I'd like to welcome you here to Plymouth Hoe and talk a little bit about what's behind me is the Royal Citadel, a huge sort of fortress built in the 1660s on the whim of Charles II. Now, we hadn't been on Charles's side during our Civil War, so it's a great statement that stands up here on the east end of Plymouth Hoe. Plymouth Hoe is this great ridge of limestone that divides the sea on my left to the city on the right. And it was replaced a fort that was here already. Sir Francis Drake had been here in the 1580s and had built a fort, and the Royal Citadel actually was added on to that. And it's about 3/4 of a mile around the ramparts and about 25 acres, maybe 12 hectares, 10, 12 hectares, the size of 6 football pitches inside, so it's a huge. And it's home today of 29 Commando Royal Artillery, who are the artillery support for the Royal Marines. We do public tours inside the Royal Citadel by kind permission of 29 Commando Royal Artillery and under the auspices of English Heritage, who have a watching brief about looking after the Citadel. And they're bookable online every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday. You have to book 24 hours in advance, and just be careful to read all the sort of strict rules that there are to do with security, basically. Very high security as a working army garrison. We'll meet you outside the front gate and introduce you to the tour, and then we go through this magnificent Baroque gateway with the coat of arms of Charles II, who had it built, and John Grenville, the Earl of Bath, who was the first governor of the Royal Citadel. And he actually, when he welcomed Charles II in 1671, he presented Charles II with a silver key, which is always presented these days to any important visitors. Charles II actually handed the key back and said, I'm sure it's in safekeeping if I leave it in your hands. And so we still have the silver key in the Royal Citadel in the officers' mess. I say it's handed to all sorts of different important people when they come. The Queen has been here, Queen Elizabeth II, our Queen, has been here 3 times, and she's been handed the key and has then handed it back, and so it's still in safekeeping inside the officers' mess. When we get inside the Citadel, it's quite huge. If you've never been in there before, it looks huge. I say it's about the size of 6 football pitches inside. And there's various buildings. They've come and gone over the years, but there's remains of buildings that have been there for since the 1690s, and then they go in 100-year steps. So 1690s, 1790s, 1890s, and a big refurbishment in the 1990s. They actually had to change 1,000 windows in the 1990s, and they're coming round to changing those again. And we walk around the ramparts, so the 3/4 of a mile around the ramparts, and you get one of the best views you get in Plymouth. It's like a mini tour of Plymouth without going very far. So we can see out onto the Hoe, right out into Cornwall, right out into the Sound, and you can see as far as the Eddystone Light on a clear day. And then you can peep over the wall down into the Barbican area and Capwater. One of the buildings that we can go into inside the Citadel is the Royal Chapel of St Catherine within the Citadel upon the Hoe, so it's a long name for a little chapel. The original St Catherine's Chapel was actually up here on the east end of the Hoe and predates even Drake's Fort. When Sir Francis Drake actually had the fort built, they enclosed the old St Catherine's and she became the garrison church. But then when Charles II had the Royal Citadel built in the 1660s, they knocked down the original St Catherine's and built what we've got today, and then that was extended in the 1840s. But there's some very fine stained glass in there that has actually come from, we lost something like 40 churches in Plymouth during the Second World War, so some of the stained glass in there has come from the garrison church in Devonport. Plus there's new stained glass which celebrate the regiment, 29 Commando Royal Artillery, who've been in here since 1962. We get all these lovely views as you go around, and there are about 35 cannon in here, all various different ages. And when I do the tour, I introduce my second favourite cannon, And I had one gentleman, an American gentleman, said to me, gee, a lady with 2 favourite cannons. And there's stories that you can tell about the cannons, but one of our prized possessions in there is the Waterloo cannon, which was captured in 1815 and is now a pride of place in front of the officers' mess. I'm looking forward to your questions in the question and answer session. Can you please put them in the chat box and I'll hopefully have some answers for you.
Thank you all for those fantastic presentations showcasing Plymouth's military heritage. I'm joined this morning by Claire from the Mountbatten Tower, Chrissy from About the West Guides, and Charlie from the Box. Thank you, ladies, for joining us this morning. We're just going to run through a few questions that we've had through regarding military heritage within Plymouth and some fantastic questions about your wonderful attractions as well. Claire, if I can come to you first, the views look absolutely amazing from the Mountbatten Tower and will give visitors to the city a really great vista of the city and Plymouth Sound. In terms of timings, how long would you say a self-guided tour to the tower would take?
Okay, so we would allocate each group an hour. So that's it would be a self-guided tour. You would get your information sheet. There'd be members of staff from the Mountbatten Water Sports and Activities Centre on site, just as key points to make sure everyone's having a good time. If there's any questions from a health and safety aspect, but ultimately once you get to the tower, it's yours and your groups for the hour allocation. And actually, once you get to the top, it's where the magic is really where the views happen. So you make sure you've got your camera. But yeah, absolutely. So plenty of time to see it. It's really spending the time at the top and taking all the views is where you'd want to spend your time for that.
Perfect. Thank you, Claire. Chrissy, over to you. Obviously, the Royal Citadel, key attraction within Plymouth. What visitors can visit for military heritage. Tell us a little bit about the Royal Citadel and why it was built, if you could.
The Citadel is a huge fortress on the east end of Plymouth Hoe. It was built for Charles II in the 1660s. We were busy fighting the Dutch at the time. We always seem to be sort of at war with somebody, but to dominate the east end of the Hoe, particularly as Plymouth hadn't been on the side of the King during the Civil War. So it's a big statement. It looks out, yes, across the Sound, but it also keeps an eye on the people of Plymouth. It's about an hour and a half's tour, about 3/4 of a mile around the ramparts, and it's probably the best preserved 17th century fortress in Europe. It's really an unsung sort of treasure that Plymouth has.
Thank you, Chrissy. Charlie, at the Box, we've heard there is a huge connection with Plymouth with its links to the Royal Navy. We've touched on already about hearing about the dedicated gallery that's in the Box. Now, can a bespoke tour be booked to showcase Plymouth's links with its military past?
Yes, definitely. So obviously there's a lot of options. There's a lot of history at the Box. Obviously, so we have Port of Plymouth 1, which is all about the history of Plymouth Sound and fishing and military and all of that. But then you can clock into the dockyard and go into Port of Plymouth 2, which is all about the history of the dockyard and military. And it's a really fascinating gallery full of amazing history. And yes, we can do bespoke offers, but it is also available as part of our highlights tour. So you can have kind of a whistle stop of that section as well as the rest of the galleries.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you. Chrissy, now there's a really lovely story you touched on through your presentation about the key being handed over from the King at the time and now obviously with the Queen going forward. Lovely to hear this tradition. Is this still continuing and can visitors sort of experience this or can they see the key on their visit, for example?
The tradition does continue. Every important visitor to the Royal Citadel is handed the key, and the tradition is that it's always handed back. apart from the time when the Queen's father, George VI, came and put it in his pocket until he was reminded as he went through the portal, please, sir, can we have it back? You know, the tradition. So the Queen has been 3 times and has always handed the key back, unlike her father. But yes, it's kept in the officer's mess. I don't know if you can see that. And unfortunately, you can't see it on the tour, but we tell the story. There's a group of us that guide around as part of Armada Tours on behalf of English Heritage.
Brilliant, thank you, Chrissy. Charlie, in terms of the 14 figureheads, I know we touched on this in the previous presentation, but they're classed as like decorative arts in wooden carved sculptures. Now again, is this something the box could do in terms of a bespoke tour, talking about like military heritage with the arts and really connecting from that point of view, more so than the heritage side? Is that something that we could book a bespoke talk or a guided tour for?
So I think one of the great things about the box is that we have got a lot of experts, a lot of curators, and people who really love to share their knowledge and share their experience. So whether you want to learn specifically about the art and the heritage or specifically about the figureheads, we can work with you as tour operators to come up with a unique offer for your clients.
Perfect, thank you. Claire, going back to you about the accessibility with the tower. Obviously it's 17th century, been there for quite a while. What is the accessibility like? What would a visitor or group expect when they arrived at the tower?
So unfortunately, there is no wheelchair access to the tower, as I'm sure you can appreciate. It is mid-17th century. It has had funding into it over the last few years to make it as accessible as possible. But obviously, inside to maintain the integrity of the building, it's unlevel, big stone steps that do take a bit of a. They're not your normal standard staircase. It's a bit of a hike up, but it's certainly worth it to the top of the views. We'd all recommend that sturdy footwear's worn when you come. It's certainly not the day for high heels. It is certainly walking boots or sturdy footwear to wear it, but the views from the top do really afford it. Over time, we've certainly got videos that we can use. Obviously, it's not the same experience, unfortunately, but there is an opportunity in the future, no doubt, for a virtual headset and a virtual tour for those visitors that really do want to experience the tower, but unfortunately at this time aren't able to.
Lovely, thank you. And can I ask the same question to Chrissy, please? Because I know, obviously, as part of the Royal Citadel tour, it's around the ramparts. What's the accessibility like there, or how should a tour operator or visitor prepare before they visit?
The tour is accessible to all. There are 1 or 2 quite steep slopes, but manageable. And of course, you get these stunning views. It's like a mini guided tour of Plymouth around the ramparts. There are no steps, and apart from if the chapel is open, then there's 1 step into the chapel, but that's easy to negotiate.
Thank you. And just keeping with you, Chrissy, we've just had another question come in. For the Citadel doors, do you book direct with the Citadel, or how does the group go about booking a tour?
They are bookable. We're only allowed to do them on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays, and a maximum of 15 per tour. And it's English Heritage put a link into the booking facility. So it's if you Google English Heritage Royal Citadel, that's how you book the tours. And they have to be booked at least 24 hours in advance, just to cope with the security arrangements that the Royal Artillery require.
Yeah, because as it still is a working base, is there any, do visitors need to bring ID or any sort of supporting security identification with them when they come to visit at all?
Yes, security is quite tight. They need to bring either their passport or driving license, so photographic ID, and no liquids or mobile phones or tablets or electronic equipment is allowed inside. So we have a facility for confiscating those at the beginning of the tour. We do hand them back, of course, and no photographs allowed whilst in the Citadel. So really, it's time off from your camera. You can actually look with your eyes and just see the wonderful views as you go around.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chrissy. Sorry, one more question for you. You mentioned the 35 cannons in your presentation. Are any of them still working, or can they be seen, or how can visitors interact with them?
We see all the cannons that are still in the Citadel. The only ones that are still working are the ones that the regiment use, that they use for the royal salutes on the Queen's birthday and Prince Philip's birthday, and the accession day. Those are the only working ones. So there are some special ones in there, and I have two particular favourites. One is from Waterloo, captured at Waterloo. So in this year of celebrating Napoleon's death, or commemorating Napoleon's death, we've got a Waterloo cannon in the Citadel, which is my favourite.
Brilliant. And we're looking within Plymouth to develop a Napoleon itinerary for this year to celebrate the 200 years. So that will bring in, obviously, walking tour and a walking tour. I know you're putting together, Chrissy, for this, and also a visit to the box to look at the print of the Bellefonds, and also there's some good artefacts within the Port of Plymouth exhibition as well, Charlie, as well. So again, that's something we're linking in with Plymouth in terms of the military maritime heritage of the city. Is there anything else you ladies would like to ask or share with the tour operators we've got online today? Anything we'd like to add to the presentation? Claire?
I do not only do
Chrissy,
the Citadel.
sorry.
I beg your pardon. I not only do the Citadel, but I do all sorts of tours around Plymouth and further afield, as I'm a registered Blue Badge guide, so I can go anywhere that people want me to.
Claire, sorry, from Mountbatten Tower.
Yes. So from the Mountbatten Tower, there is, as you've talked about today, there's so much history in Plymouth, and actually the tower is one of those landmarks that you stand on the Hoe or from the Citadel or from the waterfront and look across and always wonder about. It's accessible in terms of, tour groups can come across on the Mountbatten ferry, and then it's a short walk up to the tower. And for coach guides and for coach tours, there's the accessibility by parking in the custodians car park. And by custodians, it's the Mountbatten Water Sports and Activity Centre. The team there are the custodians of the tower. So we run the guides, we book the guides. So there's plenty of opportunities to kind of come to the tower and look back on Plymouth, as it were, and look back onto the Citadel under Smeaton's Tower. I'd certainly recommend it in terms of if you've got the time for that hour tour. It really does give you some phenomenal views and a 360-degree view right around Plymouth, to see it from a different perspective.
Thank you. Charlie, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yes. So just from an accessibility point of view, the box was designed with people and visitors in mind. So we are fully accessible, and we are also free to enter. So even if you're not wanting to book tours or things like that, we are completely free to enter. So your clients can visit Port of Plymouth and Port of Plymouth 2 without having any issues. We also have a fully accessible restaurant, fully accessible shop, and we can completely cater to your needs as a kind of easy to visit venue, if nothing else. But it's breathtaking, and when you walk in that door and you see King Billy welcoming you, there's not much that can beat it, I don't think.
No, and I think that's one thing as well with the display of the figureheads is absolutely, they're suspended from the ceiling, and that is something fantastic to see in terms of a welcome to the box. Okay.
Well, there's not many places you can eat with them hanging above you.
I know. It's interesting to see how they were put up there. I think that's, something as well, isn't it, that the box can showcase of how these attractions, these exhibits were actually placed into the box as well. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, ladies. I'd like to thank you for your time today and for talking to us about your wonderful attractions and about the military heritage on offer here within Plymouth. We're now breaking for lunch, and please do visit our virtual booths or network. So these ladies are online if you want to talk to them about their attractions and ask them questions directly to them. And we'll see you back here at 2:30 to hear from Visit Liverpool, and also we'll be talking about Plymouth's industrial heritage on offer. Thank you.